You're listening to Puma Podcast.
A verified impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte has been filed by at least one-third of all the members of the House of Representatives on February 5, 2025. Mr. Speaker, may we inquire from the Secretary General how many members of the House verified and swore before him the impeachment complaint?
The total number of House members who verified and swore before me this impeachment complaint is 215 House members.
Vice President Duterte was impeached on the final day of session, months after members of Congress sat on 3 separate complaints. Senators will now have to convene as an impeachment court. It is the Senate that will decide whether Duterte will be removed from office and barred from holding a public post ever again. But Senate President Cheese Escudero has ruled out starting a trial during the congressional break, which will last until June, after the midterm elections that will usher in a new Congress.
Legally, it cannot be done. Legally, it cannot be done, again, as I said, because the impeachment court was not convened. The impeachment complaint was not referred to plenary for there to be a basis for the impeachment court to be convened by the Senate sitting as a legislative body, hindi muna as an impeachment court.
I'm Bella Perez Rubio, and you're listening to Teka Teka, powered by Puma Podcast. In this episode, I speak with lawyer, law lecturer, and political analyst Michael Yusingco about the curious timing of Duterte's impeachment, what it suggests about the motives of the politicians behind it, and what it means for the upcoming trial in the Senate. The House had, I think, over 2 months to get this passed, and then at the very last minute, right before they adjourn and will remain adjourned until after the elections, they decided to pass this over to the Senate. Why do you think they chose to do that?
I don't know. I don't understand it myself. No, all I know is that the House they didn't follow their own rules. No, kasi their own rules provide that once the SecGen receives a complaint, one complaint, no, and determines that the complaint is properly verified, then the duty of the SecGen is to immediately, so the word they use is immediately, transmit this to the office of the Speaker. And then the Speaker must put this in the order of business for the plenary to consider and then endorse to the Committee on Justice. They did not follow that, no? So the SecGen sat on three impeachment complaints for several weeks. So it's very difficult to try to make sense of why they did that, or why the SecGen did that. Obviously, we can presume that maybe he received something from the top, just let it sit there for a while. I'm sure he wouldn't do that on his own volition. So it's difficult to make sense of it, because had they acted on the impeachment complaints according to their rules, then maybe we would have a different scenario altogether. Maybe we could be conducting an impeachment trial now.
And, related to that, you mentioned that there were 3 separate impeachment complaints that were in the House and not acted upon for several weeks. But what was passed to the Senate was a 4th impeachment complaint. Is there anything unusual regarding that as well?
Well, that is very unusual, no? And again, the House disregarded their own rules, at least from what I can see, no? Just observing the proceedings of that day. So their own rules mandate those members who are signing the impeachment complaint to face the SecGen and sign the impeachment complaint before the SecGen and swear before him that they have read the complaint, that they attest to the veracity of the complaint. That's why it's called a verification process. No? Now, I didn't see that. And you can imagine 215 of them. How did they do it? Right? How did they sign the complaint in front of the SecGen? 215 of them. Did they do it one by one? Did they do it by groups or by one group? All we know is that suddenly the complaint was signed by 215 members, and then they hold a plenary session, and they go through the ceremony or the motions of endorsing it, etc., and then transmitting it to the Senate. Kumbaga, what may have happened is the signature page might have been distributed amongst those members, and they just affix their signatures there. And that is not according to their rules. No, that doesn't meet the requirement prescribed in their rules.
Yeah, and will that present problems moving forward?
Yeah, theoretically, this matter can be raised to the Supreme Court, no, on certiorari, because the House did not comply with their own rules, denying due process to Vice President Duterte, and therefore the articles of impeachment wasn't properly done, no, according to the rules and according to the Constitution.
Attorney Yusingco says some lawmakers may simply be unfamiliar with impeachment rules. Impeachment happens so rarely. There have only been 4 others in Philippine history. President Estrada in 2000, Ombudsman Mercedita Gutierrez and Chief Justice Renato Corona in 2011, and Commission on Elections Chairman Andres Bautista in 2017.
But just on the political aspect of it, I think the protagonists. I think there are actually 2 protagonists on the side of the pro-impeachment complaint, the admin side, the Marcos side, and also, ironically, the traditionally anti-Marcos personalities and groups, no, who are against the Dutertes this time. So who are they? The LP, the Makabayan Bloc, no. For them, I think they were really operating under an urgency to act now, no, because they want to disqualify Vice President Duterte from running in 2028. Now, I think on the side of the Marcoses, no, the president and the speaker, I think they were taking their time. No, they were deliberating on whether this was a good move or not. I think in their minds, they are looking at what's happening in South Korea, no, and they might be thinking, if we proceed with impeachment, this could have an adverse effect on our economy, and the economy is their boasting point, right? That's where the economy is, where they have many good news to share, at least from their perspective, no?
He's referring there to the ongoing political crisis in South Korea, set off by a failed attempt by President Yoon Suk-yeol to place the country under martial law. The uncertainty over the country's political future has spilled over to its economy, dampening its outlook for 2025.
So maybe in their minds they were calculating, they were thinking, is this worth it, no, for us? But at the expense of the national economy, right? Which might also bite them in the ass later on, no? If the economy turns bad. But and that's why I think they were dilly-dallying with the three impeachment complaints.
More from lawyer and political analyst Michael Yusingco after a quick break.
Is it true that there's no other option for this Senate but to wait until June because an impeachment court wasn't convened?
No, that's not true. Because the Constitution is very clear. I can read it for you. Diba? So once the articles of impeachment are transmitted, trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. Also, forthwith meaning immediately. So the Constitution is clear that trial must commence immediately. But I don't think that means instantly. So the Constitution won't contemplate an absurd situation. So I think that phrase forthwith also contemplates the Senate doing the preparatory works, the necessary preparatory works before they convene as an impeachment court. So right now, the Senate should be preparing. They should be doing the necessary administrative, logistical, whatever, like photocopying the complaints, setting up whatever, briefing the staff, or this is what's going to happen. So they should be doing that now. So if that takes, let's say, 1 month, once those works are done, then it is incumbent upon the Senate now to convene as an impeachment court. So I think it's not correct for Senate President Escudero to say that they cannot convene during the break or that they can only convene during the session on June 2, because the Constitution is very clear, that they must proceed forthwith.
So why postpone the trial by at least 4 months?
Oh, definitely, there is a political calculation about it. Obviously, being the consummate traditional politician, the Senate President wouldn't want to ruffle any feathers, So, what particularly ruffle feathers from within his own group, from within the Senate, because he understands many of the senators now are really focused on the elections, and they wouldn't want to work anymore, right? They wouldn't want to be distracted or taken away from their own pursuits to win in May. But for me, that shouldn't be the case, because obviously the Constitution should always be the priority. And the Constitution has given them, the senators, this duty, this constitutional duty. And as a member of the public, or the public should expect from them to fulfill that duty, over and above their own interest or their own ambitions. But unfortunately, being dynastic politicians, we know that by instinct, they would always favor their self-interest over the public interest. So that's why we're here now.
Yusingco says the Marcos administration will likely benefit from the national fixation on impeachment.
Lucky for them, they're also enjoying the fact that the anti-Marcos group or groups, they're really bringing this to the fore, this issue to the fore. Kumbaga, they're really fighting this out with the other side in the public sphere in a way that serves as a distraction to really some of the bad things that are happening in our country, like the budget, ACAP, the education crisis, right? So in a way, the administration is being shielded from criticisms with regards to those issues because the public sphere is now very dominated by this impeachment matter.
We talked about the fact that this fourth complaint appeared very very recently, and it's like a almost an amalgamation of the three that were sitting for months in Congress. Have you had time to go over the complaint, and what do you think of the actual articles that they decided to go with?
So I purposely didn't read it, no, because it's so thick. It's very thick, and just perusing the first few pages, I already know that this is a poorly made, poorly crafted complaint, no, because as in practice, our mindset is you have to be brief, very brief as you can, because you're considering the judge who's going to read it. So if you file a complaint or a petition that is that thick, you're actually burdening the judge, right? Because the judge has to read every page of that, no? In this situation, the complaint, no? All you really need is one article, and that will do the trick, right? If you add seven, or if you list seven, then what you're actually doing is you're making it hard for the judge. So for me, I think the ground that pertains to the misuse or misappropriation of confidential funds, which is plunder, that ground alone would have been enough, would have been even a strong ground for betrayal of public trust, culpable violation of the Constitution, etc. And they already have, the evidence for that because of the hearings, right? So the other grounds for me are more of the parties involved trying to put their stamp on the complaint. They're accommodating all of these different groups, no, that they want to have an identity there that this came from us. And I think that's going to be detrimental to their cause, no, because it's going to be difficult for the senator judges to read those number of pages, no.
Is it too late for them now to? Is it not possible for the Senate to hold a more focused trial? They have to abide by the seven complaints and try her for all seven.
Exactly. Yeah, you got it. You got it. So they have to go through that. They have to go through that through the trial one by one. And because there are a lot, what's going to happen is it can dilute the supposed to be meatier ones. No? It's going to, spreading themselves thin, right?
Apart from abuse of power and the misuse of funds, the other articles of impeachment touch on Vice President Duterte's unexplained wealth, alleged bribery and sedition, threats she made against the First Family, and her possible involvement with the Davao Death Squad and drug war killings.
So instead of just focusing on one or two, whatever, and just making a good presentation behind those 2 points or two articles, then that would have been they would have a better chance of success if they did that. Right now, I can just imagine the impeachment trial, being a drag, basically.
Another constant in this conversation about impeachment is that this is a political process. I think it's said almost as if to diminish the value of the process at times.
Yeah. So first of all, it's actually wrong to say that it's a political process. No, the correct description is it is a constitutional process with political considerations. So the emphasis must be on the fact that it is a constitutional process. It is prescribed in the Constitution. It has a purpose that is prescribed in the Constitution. No? So the rationale is to give the people, through their representatives, the power to remove public officials or the highest public officials of the land. Kaya very specific lang ang pwede ma-impeach. If you notice, President, Vice President, Supreme Court judges, and the chairman and the commissioners of the COMELEC, no? And the ombudsman, right? So this is a power given to the people to be exercised by their elected representatives to remove these officials, these high public officials, because they are no longer fit for office. These officials, if you also notice, they are not elected every 3 years. They stay in office for long periods, no? So they are not subject to an immediate removal via the electoral process. So it is not just a political thing where we can make excuses, no? Like it's a numbers game, it's a personalities game. Those are all true actually, but the emphasis should not be there. No? The emphasis should be, we should be following the rules. We should be following what is prescribed in the Constitution. Because it has a rationale, a constitutional rationale. No? This can't be, impeachment cannot be just subject to the whim of politicians or the powers that be. No? It must still be anchored, grounded on the Constitution.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka. I'm Bella Perez Rubio. This episode was edited by Anthony Tobias. If you enjoyed it, why not share it with a friend or two? And subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't already. Thanks for listening.